Welcome back to another episode of the Course Creation Incubator. I'm Gina Onativia, your online course coach and digital strategist, working to make sure you get your online course done, out to market, and of course sold. And to get it sold, you've got to be serving the right kind of student with your course, which is exactly what we're tackling in this week's episode. Now, figuring out your ideal student or avatar is top of mind for me right now because we just wrapped our validation exercises for my 6-week accelerator a few weeks ago, and now we're well into our posted exercises and scripting. It's also been a journey of audience discovery for all of my accelerator students. In fact, I had one of them tell me I learned the hard way who my ideal client was, a year and a half later, and a lot of heartache. This student also said it took them that journey to really drill down and find their niche. And listen, sometimes that's your journey. I'm not going to lie, sometimes you have to live through it. However, part of my mission for this podcast is to give you some tools and shortcuts so you don't have to go through that pain. The pain that student expressed to me, and to be honest, pain I've been through also. That's why it's so important to do as much validation as possible before putting out your first course. Doing the work up front will also help you figure out who you are really helping. Now, I've talked about this before, way back in episode 2, and about finding your corner, so check that out if you haven't listened yet. I believe you have to do your research up front, interviewing your potential students, and really get to the root of who you are serving. Now, that research is typically affectionately called avatar or ideal client research. And most marketing gurus, including myself, if I could call myself a guru, right, teach this as the best way to get to know your audience. You identify their demographics, gender, age, what they do, are they married, do they have kids, maybe their income, etc. Then you paint a scenario. Where do they shop, hang out? What social platforms do they consume? What kind of car do they drive? You learn their spending habits. Then you write your avatar scenarios. For example, Martin is 48. He's just written his first business book and is looking to start getting paid speaking engagements, but doesn't know where to begin. And so on and so on. You take it from there. That would be for Al, one of my students who is helping nonfiction authors get stages, book stages. Or Lori, who's 62 and is looking to reconnect with her creative side. She also wants to stave off dementia and do something new with her young grandkids. And then you take it from there. That would be for my accelerator student, Martha, who teaches doodling. And by the way, sidebar, I'm learning so much about doodling and the benefits just from Martha taking the accelerator. All of this is incredible info and very valuable, and I think it's a great starting point. And for a lot of people, this is where it ends. This is just a starting point, though. Don't stop here. I want you to take this even further, because there are 2 elements I want you to bring to the table if you really want to know and dig down into your ideal client, your ideal student. First, what's the moment of engagement? I still call it the oh shit moment. What's the moment that your person realizes that they really need you? Now, you've heard the question, what keeps them up at night? I want to ask you, what's the exact thought that keeps them up at night? That exact thought that makes them want to engage with you. So I've been talking about this class of accelerators. It's an exceptional class, by the way. And I've got a couple in the accelerator, Kate and Tanner, who are working with women who are married but feel stuck or stagnant, stressed, frustrated. And for a second, they had the thought of divorce creep into their minds. Now, they haven't done anything about it. Just the idea has crossed their minds. And just this idea is disturbing enough to get them to take action. So that would be the moment of engagement for Kate and Tanner. That's the moment they decide things aren't working and they need help. It's not a divorce. They're not going after a divorce. They're not looking to hire lawyers. They're not looking to find out more information about that. They want to solve this problem because they feel the urgency, because even the idea of divorce popping into their mind freaks them out. Why is this moment so important? Because it helps you drill down even further on your audience and helps you decide how you want to market to them. So they know they're not going after that mom or that woman who's seeking divorce. That goes too far. That's not their person. That's another course, right? They want women who haven't yet hit that phase. So they can speak to that point. What does it mean for divorce to pop into your head like that? What does that mean for the state of your relationship? It's so specific. It's such a strong connection point. I've also found that the engagement or oh shit moment challenges people in their research. You realize how well do you really know this person if you had to drill it down to a specific moment. Think about that for yourself, for your student, for your course. Now, there's two elements, remember? So secondly, I want you to ask what's really driving them. I've been reading Nir Eyal's Hooked about how products influence our behavior. I think this was an older book out a few years ago, and then he just refreshed it, and I just discovered it. And in the book, he talks about a professor, Dr. Edward Deci, I hope I'm saying that right, from University of Rochester, who defines motivation as the energy for action. I kind of love that, right? Energy for action. What kind of energy for action do you need to give your potential student to buy? Inside of Hooked, Eyal brings up Dr. BJ Fogg's behavior model, which says folks are driven by three core motivators. One, they seek pleasure and avoid pain. So it's like the flip sides, right? Two, they seek hope and avoid fear. Or three, they seek social acceptance and avoid rejection. I want you to take your ideal student exercise another step further and ask, which of these core motivators drives your person? So, for example, instead of MacGyvering the grill every year, your person wants to buy the top-of-the-line Weber to seek social acceptance. Or instead of grabbing the ready-made sandwiches at the local Quick Mart, they want to plan ahead and have healthier meals to avoid the pain of gaining more weight or for the pleasure of getting fit and feeling slimmed down, right? Feeling toned. Or in the case of our nonfiction writer that we brought up earlier, maybe he's hoping to be confident with his speaking and avoid the fear of freezing up when faced with an audience. Now, these drivers can be so potent when you're working with your ideal student and can come into play when you're writing your sales page or other marketing materials, or just when you're talking about your course, you're on a webinar, right? Or you're doing videos, or you're on a podcast and you're talking about the value of what your course brings and why students really need it. All right, I want you to bring those two elements into play, and I want to leave you with three final tips. One, make your person a real person. I was working with a client a few months ago who was struggling to drill down on their ideal client or their ideal avatar. They couldn't come up with a real person. They kept coming back to me and saying, does it have to be someone real? I said, yeah, it's got to be someone real, because if you don't have someone real, you might not have an audience of potential buyers. You might think you do. You might have something conjured in your head, but until you figure out who the actual person is and you can paint that person, you can paint the picture of that person, you might not have a buyer. You might not have somebody who's ready to put their credit card down. So if you don't have a real audience, you may not have seen the results you need to sell your course. So think about that. That's number one. Number two, drilling down on your ideal student. This isn't an exact science. You may not hit the bullseye the first time out, but you at least want to have it drilled down enough and honed in enough that you're at least hitting that ring outside the bullseye. You might not actually nail it, but you're racking up points that lead to conversions. I had a grad student, a mastermind student when I had a mastermind, Elaine, and she served new colorists with a traditional way of coloring their hair. Now, she was convinced that her audience was brand new colorists out of school, out of beauty school, but then realized as time went on and she was selling her courses that actually some seasoned colorists were buying from her as well. So she hit the bullseye in a way that she knew she was serving colorists, new colorists, but then she expanded her audience. So again, it's not an exact science. You never know what you're going to figure out and who you're really serving till you get your offers out there. You're validating your price point. You're validating your course. Here's the final tip I want to leave you with. Keep digging for the why. Also in Hooked, Neil talks about the 5 whys method from Toyota, where you keep digging for your audience's why so the nature of the problem and solution reveals itself. Now, I know some of you might already know this 5 why system, and let's put it into play when it comes to figuring out who our ideal student is and really drilling down. So here's an example. Why would Larry want to get booked on stages? Answer: so he can add to his list of bookings. Why would he want to add that to his list? The answer could be so he could show himself as the expert and sell more books. Why does Larry care about showing himself as the expert? An answer would be so he could stand out from the competition. Why does Larry care about standing out from the competition? And an answer could be so he doesn't feel the fear of feeling like an imposter. So we get to a core motivator here, fear. Ask yourself the series of why questions to drill down. Now, I just asked a series of 4 questions. The Toyota production system talks about getting to the 5 whys to really drill down on what those core motivators are. Now, by the way, this exercise isn't new to me. I actually learned it from an incredible mentor, marketing master Mark Figueroa, who's the best branding expert I know and one of the greatest copywriters I know. I asked Mark to join us next week to talk about messaging, branding, and all the stuff that can set you apart. A lot of what I know about approaching voice and brand and communications is because of Mark. So make sure you listen in next week. Please rate and review this episode, especially if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, and subscribe. I would love to help get the word out and build up our course creation community. Until next week, go create, be you and be brilliant, and get it done.